Ever wonder how one person's decisions could literally reshape the map of the world? Today, we're diving into the life of a queen who did just that, Isabella I of Castile. She was a woman of iron will, deep faith, and world-changing ambition. Her reign wasn't just a chapter in Spanish history. It was the explosive beginning of the Spanish Empire, an era of discovery, and a period of intense religious conflict. From unifying a fractured land to funding a voyage that would accidentally bump into a new continent, Isabella's story is packed with drama, power, and controversy. Was she a visionary leader who built a global empire, or a religious zealot whose policies caused immense suffering? The truth, as always, is complicated. So let us pull back the curtain on the life of one of history's most powerful and debated monarchs. To understand the Queen, we have to start at the beginning. Isabella was born in 1451 in a small town in Castile. At that time, the Iberian Peninsula, what we now know as Spain and Portugal, was a patchwork of competing kingdoms. The biggest players were Castile and Aragon, but parts were still under Moorish rule, a remnant of centuries of Islamic presence. Isabella's childhood was far from a fairy tale. She was not first in line for the throne, and her early years were marked by political instability and court intrigue. Her half-brother, King Henry IV, was on the throne, and his reign was chaotic, to say the least. The nobles were constantly rebelling, and the question of who would succeed him was the hottest and most dangerous topic in the kingdom. Isabella, though young, learned quickly. She watched, she listened, and she developed a political savvy and a steely determination that would define her entire life. She understood that in a world dominated by men and power plays, she would have to be smarter, tougher, and more resolute than anyone else to survive, let alone rule. The turning point in Isabella's life, and in the history of Spain, came in 1469. Against her brother the king's wishes, she made a bold and secret move. She married Ferdinand, the heir to the throne of the neighboring kingdom of Aragon. This wasn't just a love match, it was a brilliant strategic alliance. Think of it like the ultimate power couple of the 15th century. By joining their futures, they were signaling their intent to unite the two most powerful Christian kingdoms in Iberia. This marriage was a massive gamble. King Henry was furious and disowned her, but Isabella and Ferdinand stood firm. They knew that together, they had a chance to create something new, a single, powerful, unified Spain. When her brother died in 1474, Isabella didn't wait for a permission. She rode into the city of Segovia and had herself crowned Queen of Castile. Of course, this led to a war of succession as others claimed the throne. But with Ferdinand by her side, Isabella fought and won, securing her crown and beginning the joint reign that would change the world. They became known as the Catholic Monarchs, and their partnership was legendary. They ruled as equals, with the famous motto Tanto Monta, Monta Tanto, meaning they were equivalent in power. With their throne secure, Isabella and Ferdinand set their sights on a series of ambitious goals. One of the first and most significant was religious consolidation. Isabella was a devout, even fervent, Catholic. She believed that a unified Spain must be a uniformly Catholic Spain. This conviction led to one of the most controversial aspects of her reign, the establishment of the Spanish Inquisition in 1478. The Inquisition was a tribunal created to enforce religious orthodoxy. Its primary targets were conversos Jews who had converted to Christianity, but were suspected of secretly practicing their original faith. The Inquisition used interrogation, torture, and public executions known as autos da fe to root out what it considered heresy. It was a brutal institution that instilled fear throughout the kingdom and created a climate of suspicion and persecution. For Isabella, it was a necessary tool to achieve her vision of a purely Catholic nation. For countless people, it was an Arab tale. This religious mission was deeply intertwined with her political goals. To her, a strong state was a state united under one crown, one law, and one faith. The pinnacle of Isabella's religious and military campaign arrived in the monumental year of 1492. For centuries, Christian kingdoms had been fighting to reclaim territory from the Moors in a process known as the Reconquista. The last remaining Islamic stronghold on the peninsula was the Emirate of Granada in the south. Isabella and Ferdinand poured resources into a decade-long war to conquer it. Finally, on January 2, 1492, Granada fell. The image of Isabella and Ferdinand receiving the keys to the city is one of the most iconic in Spanish history. The Reconquista was complete. For Christian Europe, it was a massive victory. But Isabella's vision of religious unity didn't end there. Just a few months later, she and Ferdinand issued the Alhambra. This edict gave all Jews in Spain a choice: convert to Catholicism or leave the country within 4 months. They had to sell their homes and businesses for a fraction of their worth and were forbidden from taking gold or silver with them. An estimated 150,000 to 200,000 people were forced into exile, a devastating event that ended centuries of vibrant Jewish life in Spain. A similar decree would later be issued for Muslims. This policy achieved Isabella's goal of a religiously homogeneous state, but it came at an immense human cost and a significant economic one, as Spain lost a vital part of its merchant and intellectual class. But 1492 wasn't just about war and expulsion. It was also the year that Isabella made a decision that would forever alter the course of human history. For years, a persistent Genoese sailor named Christopher Columbus had been trying to get funding for a wild idea to reach the rich spice markets of the East by sailing west. Across the uncharted Atlantic, he'd been rejected by the courts of Portugal, England, and France. He even pitched it to Isabella and Ferdinand before, and they said no. But Columbus was relentless. After the victory at Granada, with the privilege but spirits high, Isabella decided to take a chance. Perhaps she was swept up in the triumphant mood, or maybe her visionary instincts saw a glimmer of possibility. Whatever the reason, she agreed to sponsor his voyage. It was a huge risk, investing in a journey that most experts believed was impossible. In August 1492, Columbus set sail with 3 small ships, the Niga, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Isabella likely hoped he'd find a new trade route to Asia. No one, absolutely no one, could have predicted what he would actually find. When Columbus returned the following year, claiming to have reached the East Indies, he brought back gold, exotic plants, and 7 all captured indigenous people. In reality, he had landed in the Americas, a new world to Europeans. Isabella's gamble had paid off in a way she could never have imagined. The discovery of the Americas unleashed the Age of Discovery and transformed Spain from a newly unified kingdom into the world's first global superpower. The wealth that began to flow back from the colony's gold, silver, and other resources was staggering. This influx of treasure-funded Spain's armies fueled its cultural golden age and made it the dominant force in Europe for the next century and a half. Isabella's sponsorship of Columbus directly led to the establishment of a vast Spanish empire stretching across the globe. However, this legacy is deeply troubled. The arrival of Europeans brought catastrophic consequences for the indigenous peoples of the Americas. Disease, warfare, and brutal exploitation led to the collapse of entire civilizations and the deaths of millions. Isabella herself seemed to have complex feelings about this. On one hand, she saw the New World as a field for evangelization. It chanced to convert millions to Christianity. On the other hand, she issued orders forbidding the enslavement of the indigenous people, whom she considered her subjects. But these orders were almost impossible to enforce from thousands of miles away, and the colonial system that developed was built on forced labor and violence. So, while she opened the door to a new era of global connection, she also unknowingly opened the door to one of the most tragic chapters in human history. Isabella died in 1504, at the age of 53. She left behind a world that was radically different from the one she had been born into. Her legacy is a study in contrasts. On one side, you have the visionary monarch who unified Spain, reformed its government and finances, and laid the foundation for its modern identity. She was a woman who shattered the conventions of her time, ruling with an authority equal to any king. Her patronage of exploration fundamentally changed humanity's understanding of the planet. But on the other side, you have the religious fanatic whose policies led to the brutal persecution of the Inquisition and the tragic expulsion of Spain's Jewish and Muslim populations. Her sponsorship of Columbus, while world-changing, also set in motion the colonization and devastation of the Americas. It's impossible to talk about her achievements without acknowledging the immense suffering that came with them. She was a product of her time, a medieval ruler with a medieval worldview, yet her actions had profoundly modern consequences. So, how do we remember Isabella I of Castile? There is no easy answer. She is celebrated by some as a saint and a national hero, the mother of Spain. Others condemn her as a cruel tyrant responsible for ethnic cleansing and the horrors of colonialism. The truth is, she was all of these things. She was a ruler of immense vision and unwavering determination, whose faith drove her to build a nation and an empire, but also to commit acts of profound intolerance. Her life reminds us that history is never black and white. The figures who shape our world are often complex, contradictory, and deeply flawed. Isabella's reign is a powerful and often uncomfortable example of how ambition, faith, and power can combine to create a legacy that is both brilliant and devastating. A legacy that continues to be debated and felt to this day. What do you think is her most significant legacy? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy this journey into the past, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more stories from history.